Of course, good marketing isn't just about winning new clients. It's also about making sure that you're doing everything you can to retain your existing clients. And one area that many MSPs ignore is how they communicate with their clients. My guest today is an expert at improving and increasing client retention through really simple communications, the kind that all your technicians can do. Hey, I'm Paul Green, and don't forget, for help finding new clients for your MSP, we've created an easy-to-follow marketing system. Get that and all the content to go in it at MSPmarketingedge.com. Today's interview is about the common service mistakes that can damage long-term client retention and how to stop them from happening in your MSP.
Hi, I'm Michelle Coombs from the Tech Leader Network, and I work with MSPs to improve their operational efficiency.
And thank you so much for joining me on the show, Michelle, because we're going to talk about ways that MSPs inadvertently, accidentally damage client retention, customer retention with their operations. It's something that happens really easily. You see it all the time, and we are going to explore that and hopefully improve retention for lots of our listeners and lots of people watching this on YouTube. So tell us a little bit about you. How long have you been working with MSPs? What's your background? And what fun do you have on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, crikey. Good question, Paul. So my background has been IT for 25 years, either in-house IT, heading up their departments, managing those MSP contracts, the relationships, the performance, or on the MSP side, heading up service, delivery and operations. Heading up some big teams, 70-odd people, 24/7 ops, handling tens of thousands of tickets a month.
And what made you jump into working with MSPs to actually help them with their operations?
It seemed a natural progression. It was when I first started out working for myself, as it were, and I was looking for a way that I could make a difference for people and almost paying back what I'd learned over the years to help those that were coming into the role. And at first I was thinking it was more around the leadership aspect, but actually service ops is where my heart is. And I thought, how can I make this easier for people and help people improve what they do on a day-to-day basis? And it's something I really enjoy, is getting to the bottom and doing that root cause analysis of what's going wrong in a service and finding ways to improve it.
Oh, and I can imagine that's just fun because your very nature of what you do is, helping MSPs just improve essentially the quality of the service and the quality of the product they're offering. And as we all know, it's so much easier to look at something that someone else is doing than to look at what you're doing yourself. So I imagine a lot of the people you work with, that the faults or the problems and the issues are right there in front of them. It's just they can't see them, can't see the woods for the trees, to use a cliche for that. So let's talk about how with your operations you can inadvertently push your clients away and damage that all-important bond with them. What are some of the most common mistakes that you see MSPs making?
If I was to pick three, the first, it would be the communications, the level of communications that go out and treating people as you expect to be treated yourself. The second would be not following through on what you say you're going to do. And the third would be not acting on feedback that you've been given by your customers.
Okay, so let's look at each of those, and we'll start with the communications one. So just so we're both talking about the same thing, we're talking about an MSP who's got a client, they're in a monthly contract, they're monthly recurring revenue clients, and presumably they've been a client for some time. What kind of communication issues do you see? Are you talking about sort of mass communications of change, or are you talking about literally technician to user communication, or is it that and everything?
All. So it can be all the way down from, we've got things like your service desk technicians that are just not communicating in a timely manner, or putting statements like it's done or resolved or something in the text and sending that to a customer, not paying attention to the way that communication can be received. Or it could be the hiding behind a keyboard when actually picking up the phone would be a better option. That's a big one, actually, not picking up the phone and just hiding behind the keyboard. But it can also be from the service desk managers and the service delivery managers' point of view, where they're facing complaints and they also don't want to acknowledge it head on because they feel like they're going to get a bit of a kick in. And rather than just approach it and take it as a fact-finding mission, it's not personal kind of basis, they can't proceed without gathering that information, but they avoid it at all costs because they just don't like the outcome that they're going to get or the feeling that they're going to get when they get that kick in.
And that's human nature, of course, because you'd have to be some kind of masochist to put yourself deliberately in for a kicking. Where you've got a specific issue, let's take the one where the technician doesn't pick up the phone. It would be easy to just pick up the phone and call the user and talk to them, but the technician doesn't. Do you tend to find that's a problem across the entire business? So would you find almost like it's the culture of the business and no one picks up the phone, maybe because the owner doesn't like picking up the phone, or is it more likely to be just one or two techs that have that issue?
It's interesting because as soon as you were starting to say that point, I was thinking it would depend on the MSP themselves and what the culture of that MSP is. So you usually find it's an all or nothing. You will get some people, though, where they have transitioned or moved from one MSP to another as a technician, and they'll have a very different way of working, but they'll soon embed themselves in that new way. And whatever the behaviour is in that MSP will be how they start to behave.
Yes, absolutely. And you can almost imagine like a new technician joining an MSP. It's their first day, they're halfway through and they're typing something to the user and thinking, I'm just going to pick up the phone, it'll be easier. And they go to pick up the phone and someone says to them, what are you doing? We don't phone people here. That's not what we do. And I think we as owners, we forget how much we set the culture of the business just by our action or our inaction. Let's look at the second of those things that you mentioned. And second of those was failing to follow through on what it is that you said that you would do. Can you give us an example of an MSP, and obviously don't name them, but an example of how that would manifest in an MSP?
Yes, it'll be something along the lines of saying, customer, I will deal with that by tomorrow. And then, as you know, working in an MSP, something hits the fan and you don't get round to doing it tomorrow. So it's about setting those realistic expectations and saying, actually, customer, I will ring you by the end of the week. So in 5 days' time, and I'll have an update for you. Because if you go sooner than that, or you deliver sooner on that response, then it's a bit of a bonus, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all talk, don't we, about under-promising and over-delivering, and I think it's more about setting really clear expectations. And I guess, and it'd be interesting to hear what your thoughts are on when you've got someone who's on the phone or has submitted a ticket and it's actually a low priority item. Let's say it's my printer doesn't work, I'm not the owner, it's a low level thing, it's not affecting everyone, it's just me. So you and I know that that's a very low level ticket, and on a very busy day, it might be some time before someone gets round to that. And yet to that person who's got that problem, they can't work, right? That's the highest level of problem that they've got right now. How do you normally advise service desk managers and technicians to manage situations like that in terms of setting expectations?
Within SLA. So it would be a case of, first I'd be looking for that workaround. So it'd be like saying, have you got any other printers that you can print to? If they have, they can put a workaround in place and they'll be fine. If not, it'd be a case of, right, just bear with me, we'll need to investigate this and I can expect to get back to you within X time. That's how I would handle that one.
Yeah, and I put you on the spot there, didn't I? You had to go straight back to your service desk days.
I did. You could see me thinking about what would I do?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yes,
and how would I want? It was more about how I would want my teams to respond, because, like you say, it's a burning issue for that client at the time. And the thing is that client or that customer is going to be potentially not in a very good place when they ring. So you need to empathise. You really need to listen to what they're saying and empathise and put yourself in those shoes and let your customer know that you understand that it's a big issue for them and that you are going to deal with it. And you just need to get them to trust in you that you are going to do what you say you're going to.
Yeah, absolutely. That word trust is absolutely key, and it's so easy to forget. Again, when you're just doing this day in, day out, year in, year out, that of every single ticket, every single call that a technician has with a user or with a client or whoever it is, you've got to be building some trust, and that is done through expectation setting and through empathy. That's some great advice there. Just remind us, Michelle, what was the third and final most common problem that you saw within MSPs?
Not acting on customer feedback.
Okay, and again, give us an example. How does this problem typically manifest itself?
It would be the customer provides some feedback in terms of as part of a meeting. So you've got some kind of delivery review. It could be through a QBR, TBR, service delivery review, whatever you title them. And the customer will give you some feedback that they're not happy with something. Account manager will give them the nod of the head, yes, I've got it. They'll take it away, they'll mention it, but nothing ever changes because ball's rolling, like everything else is cracking on. They don't have time to sit there and go, right, what's the root cause of this issue and how can we prevent it from happening again to stop this annoying this customer?
Which, of course, would be incredibly frustrating. So, Michelle, you obviously have built an entire business that's helping MSPs to avoid these kind of problems. Is it, when you work with MSPs, do you go in and work at a cultural level, or is it very much, at leadership level and also down with technicians as well?
It's that final section. So, every MSP talks about people, process, technology. For me, it's missing two pillars, which are leadership and customer. So looking at the drive and the direction that you're going in and making sure the MSP gets its objectives covered. And then the customer side is making sure that the customer satisfaction is there and that you can retain your customers for the long haul. So I work across all of those 5 pillars.
Fantastic. And tell us a little bit more about your business and how anyone can get in touch with you.
Good question. So in terms of getting in touch, the easiest option is either to go to the website, which is www.thetechleader.net, or you can just reach out to me on LinkedIn /Michelle-Coombs.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Edge.